My name is Johnny. I'm the Lone Chemist, as you all know from the live chat, and with me is Mitch Corvo.
What's up, guys?
So, Mitch, I guess third time's a charm. So, give everybody a little background check on basically what you're about and what you do with movies and how we know each other.
Well, yeah. So Johnny and I met back years ago. We were probably 10 and 8 at the time. Families became friends. Johnny and I became friends really over movies and TV and comedy. I think it was really over the imitations of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You know, we were renowned.
He's got a
for
mean streak a mile wide.
competing on imitating things for the parents and for the families. So we met that way, and then I went to school in Ohio, and I've been in Chicago for about 5 years, working in advertising, media buying, planning, and tech. And then in between those two, I was actually doing ad sales for the company called NCM, and they used to do the pre-shows before movies started.
So talk a little about that. Like, do you actually coordinate with the studios when you do that?
Yeah, so the pre-show was about 20 minutes. The company I worked for was owned by AMC Regal Cinemark, so it was all the distributors.
Okay.
And what we would do is we would do our best to put on the most cinematic creative on the big screen that we could. And the best way we do that is involve the studios to help them kind of co-develop a piece of creative.
Oh, so you actually work in tandem with the studio. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so one of the best examples we have was for a spot by the Army National Guard, and it was kind of a dual spot between them and Man of Steel. So Zack Snyder's first attempt at Superman.
Attempt in quotes.
Attempt, yeah. So that was one of the best ones, and it was about 60 seconds, and it was about 45 seconds of movie with interspersed spots from the Army National Guard actual creative. So that was one thing we did. We also did a bunch of lobby stuff, so just getting movies and getting brands into the lobbies to just have people see it before they go into the shows. But the problem is, the reason why I left is with reserved seating these days.
Yeah, not a great yield.
It's tough to actually claim, and they mean, yes, people for the most part are still there a few minutes before the movies start. Reserved seating is still pretty limited, but when you're in the big markets, like we are one of them,
Sure. Yeah.
It's a tough go, and that's what brands started to notice, and that's about time for me to start going back to what I did before in digital.
Yeah, for sure. When you were in marketing like that, did you do more of the creative stuff, or did you do more analytics, or what?
So I did mostly buying and planning, so kind of the spots and dots and the blocking and tackling, if you will. Kind of taking the budget, figuring out how to best put a media plan in place and reach as many people as possible, or at least drive the goals that the brand wanted. My current job is more analytics focused. So that's more taking all of the media buying and planning and all the activity from that, and we're getting into some odd territory here, so I'll keep it brief.
Hey, man, it's a podcast, man. You know,
true.
The subject is secondary. The conversation is primary.
True. So so it's more about analyzing the media, where it went, and actually being able to claim and prove that the ads you ran and the ads that people saw actually drove either foot traffic or purchases.
Cool.
So that's what I'm doing now, but on the side, still a big movie guy.
Oh, for sure.
I probably see about 20 movies a year.
Oh, for sure. Like probably more than that.
Oh, yeah.
We should get Movie Pass before the company tanks.
Well, AMC just did their whole monthly thing. I think it's $20 a month, and you can see 3 movies a week.
Yeah,
so
a week?
It's not a bad deal.
Movie Pass was only 3 movies a month. Wow, 3 movies a week. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, actually. No, it's three a week, and you could see the same one 3 times. It's got to be different days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, as Mitch alluded to, we got our friendship kind of going. Even though we have a 2-year age gap between us, we got our camaraderie between, whether it was swimming in the pool or hanging out and razor scooters and shit. We also were big fans of movies.
Yeah.
And Mitch actually introduced me to the director that we're going to be focusing on as the focal point of this conversation. So when I was at dinner with Mitch one time, he recommended a movie called The Game, and it stars Michael Douglas, and it's directed by David Fincher. And I watched the movie, and it was different than pretty much anything I had seen before. It was psychological, and it was aesthetically very, very, very different kind of film that I'd ever seen. And so I was really fascinated by it. And so after I'd watched it, I kind of went through the whole fanboy filmography of David Fincher, and I went through, Seven. I went through some of his earlier work, even Alien 3 I watched, which was we'll talk about that, but
Tough go.
but yeah, and as it's kind of progressed, Dave Fincher's probably become one of my favorite directors. And to quote Quentin Tarantino, I think that he's probably one of the most exciting filmmakers that's working today, where he's somebody who obviously has a really reputable filmography, but because of the promise he's shown and the improvement that he's shown throughout all of his movies, you still know that like his best work is still in front of him, and he still has a lot more to get the movie industry. And I think that David Fincher really is an innovator in ways that you probably wouldn't expect when you really watch his movies. He kind of hides things in plain sight, which is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think he's got one of the more unique styles, at least going these days. And I think when you say a director who still has a lot to give, it's interesting because he still has a lot to give, but he's also proven a lot.
Oh, he's influenced cinema like in a huge way while he's been here. He's only directed how many big features besides Alien 3, which is a dog shit.
Besides Alien 3, we've got what, 2, 3? 10, 12, maybe.
Which is like absurd because I mean that's in the level of someone like Tarantino who's directed 8 movies and they've made cinema this transcendent thing, which you can't even imagine them working in the movie industry without those people actually influencing them. But they're the ones who are the trendsetters for their own style, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I think Tarantino I think has the most unique style.
Yeah,
of anybody going these days, but you have to kind of like it.
For
you
sure.
Know what I mean, he's got a style that is deliberate, and he starts in the middle, and then there's a lot of narration, and there's a lot of like on screen. It seems kind of like an older style, but with a bunch of new people.
I feel like he's like a novelist of film, where it's like books can start like at the end of things and then track to the beginning, and like I feel like he's bringing that kind of aspect to film. Where David Fincher, he tells a relatively mainstream story for the most part, but he does it in a way where it makes it so palatable and so unique that I mean you can't really compare it to pretty much anybody else who's working in the industry.
It's true, and he's got a lot of similar themes.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I think we're gonna get to that, but all of his movies are very broad appealing. Maybe you kind of have to be okay with a little bit of a disturbing atmosphere, or
it's morose for sure.
He's definitely got a bleak outlook. That was when I tried to think when I was doing research this week, and I was like, what's one word that David Fincher's and his movies makes me think of? Is bleak. Not the best word, but it's true, at least from a color palette and from a tone standpoint. Everything is very dark and bleak and kind of interesting, but it kind of, by the end of the movies, end of each film, it comes full circle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And you're kind of revived or relieved by the end.
Yeah, no,
at
for
least
sure.
For the most part, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the color palette, for one thing, it's almost like he has this kind of steel blue, like, base palette of color.
Very, like, unique to him.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like if you look up at the sky, like, right after it rains, it's like that's, like, the base color that he has for all of his movies.
Yep.
And, like, I feel like that gives... So, one of his films, one of the qualities of his films, it's a very... He's been called a cold filmmaker, where it's like he kind of just presents things emotionally. But I disagree, because he almost has a very intimate way of presenting stories and different characters, like progressing through films. Like, for example, there's a great video essayist, The Nerd Writer. You ever heard of him on YouTube? That one. Yeah, so that one, like, he comments on the fact that this color palette that's very bleak and not really obtrusive at all, coupled with the fact that the camera and the microphone basically follows exactly where the characters are going, it kind of locks you into this moment, because when you go out in the wilderness or in your home or whatever, you don't see these like bright oranges or like deep blue hues. You see things that are kind of flat, affected color palettes. And so that, coupled with the camera moving in that way and following the characters, it kind of locks you into, I guess, the character's mantra, or so to speak, where you kind of align with the character more easily than you would with someone else who's making a film like that.
I think that's his trademark, honestly. Besides the color palette, you know it's a Fincher movie.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get into examples, but you know it's a Fincher movie. But then the way that he follows the action, it's extremely character focused.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's the tilt of a head, he does a lot of tracking shots on dollies. Everything is very clear and stable. And another word that I thought of was precise.
Oh, for sure.
That's kind of who he is. And I wonder if for some of these movies, he's got characters that are somewhat like who he sees himself.
Yeah, super fastidious and super detail oriented. Yeah.
I think Seven's a great example, and Morgan Freeman's
Absolutely.
Detective Somerset. That's one of the first things that I thought. I was like, this guy, from the very first scene, you don't even get to the credits. There's a cold open, which is kind of unique for movies these days.
Oh, for sure.
Well, actually, some movies don't even have credits these days.
Yeah.
You get to the cold open, and he's basically, you see him like putting his everyday carry, like his pockets and his wallet and everything together, and it's so each item is a single camera shot.
Wow.
To pick up either the switchblade, the wallet, his glasses.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
it's crazy. So I wonder. There's always a part, whether it's a main character or how the movie progresses, that is part of him.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about like how crazy of how fastidious he is.
Oh, for sure.
But
I mean, he has a reputation in the movie industry where, like, if you get booked to the David Fincher movie, like, you're obviously, like, if you're an actor, you're really, really excited about it, but you know that you're in for 4 months of shooting hell when you go into that guy. Like, he's been called, like, the new Kubrick, like, not comparing their styles or whatever, but
yeah.
Stanley Kubrick is somebody who had their actors do, like, 40 or 50 takes of just walking in a hallway or just, like, you know, coughing. And David Fincher, apparently, his timed rehearsals and all that shit is just, like, it's so down pat and it's so inlaid in the actual script where, I mean, you have to, like, walk down a hallway, like 40 times? Like, that's nuts.
That's his thing. I mean, Kubrick could get to the point where, I mean, he's accused of ruining the Tom Cruise Nicole Kidman marriage through that ridiculous ass movie.
Yeah, like there was a documentary where it's like Nicole Kidman was like, "Yeah, I did that crying scene probably 70 times," which is like,
it's absurd. I mean, he's got a bit of a Kubrick-esque, but he's not like abusive to the actors as far as
exactly.
I'm aware. I feel like every actor who signs on, at least now that he's got maybe post Zodiac, knew what they were getting into.
Oh,
so
for sure.
Was what? That was his 6th movie? Yes. Number 6. Film. Did you know this guy comes from music videos?
Fincher?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. He did music videos. Like, one of the craziest ones that I saw was he did Straight Up, Paula Abdul.
No way.
He did all kinds of crazy ass music videos.
I had no idea. Wow.
He did a Bowie one.
Well, that makes sense. Like Bowie and him.
Oh yeah.
Like a marriage in heaven.
And what's most interesting is that he also did Closer, 9 Inch Nails.
Really?
And yeah, as far I could be wrong on that, so viewers correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder if that's how he got to meet Trent Reznor, through directing some 9 Inch Nails videos.
That makes sense.
Because he does a lot of work with the same people. He's done
exactly.
Brad Pitt 3 times, Kevin Spacey twice, if you count House of Cards.
Yeah.
Which, like, we have to, but
yeah, the first second episode, right?
Yeah. So
I think he only did 2 episodes.
He did 2 episodes, but he was a producer.
He produced the entire thing. Yeah.
And he's a pretty young guy. He was born in like the early 60s.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
not like he's Scorsese or even James Cameron for that matter.
No, he's got a lot of life ahead of him.
I think he's got at least 20 more years of solid movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and the thing I like about him, like, it kind of makes him stand apart, is like, I mean, he does make some films that are very artful and very kind of art house, but he doesn't come across pretentious in any way.
I agree.
Like he presents life as kind of matter of fact, and the reason, so like a good interesting parallel between him and someone like Richard Linklater, who did, obviously Boyhood and Before Midnight and School of Rock.
Did he do School of Rock?
Yeah, Richard Linklater did School of Rock.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
great movie.
Yeah, I actually did a podcast on that, so check it out. But yeah, like so Rick Linklater, he does movies where it's like coming of age and it's very fond and it's very you look back on your life with a lot of sentiment that's like really positive and joyous. And David Fincher, he presents life, but on the other perspective, where like he presents like the really challenging aspects of life, like mental illness or narcissism or egotism and stuff like that. And so, yeah, like his depiction of just general events and general sentiment I think it's really unmatched, to be honest, even by somebody like Tarantino. Like Tarantino is highly stylized and shit like that, but I think Fincher has a style that kind of makes him I mean, I don't think he's really made a lot of cult films because cult kind of applies to like they're not very fiscally successful on the first go. I mean, all of his movies have been very successful, but I think he has a cultish following of his fan base of like people that love his movies because I mean they're all so unique, but they all have that really really Fincher kind of style associated with them.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on the cult status and whether it's box office successful or not. Fight Club, I think that one has to be.
Yeah, true.
Because that one, I'm just looking at it now. Total, believe it or not, only $37 million.
Really?
Box office, yeah.
To date, like DVD sales and everything.
Not counting that. So lifetime gross at
okay,
the
I was gonna say because like yeah.
Fight Club was 37, and Zodiac was only 33.
Well, Zodiac makes sense because it's kind of a morose kind of. Like a murder mystery kind of thing. Those don't really like draw a lot of attention, but I mean they had wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal as the lead?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a true lead in that one. Gyllenhaal, I guess.
The main billing status,
top bill, sure. But I would say Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo were equally as important.
Yeah, sure.
And had equally as much screen time because you had that whole part about Robert Downey, like I forget his name in the film, the character. But he loses his mind and he ends up living in that cabin on the lake or whatever it is.
I haven't seen it in like 10 years. That movie.
It's been a while, but each one has their thing. But I think to your point, Gyllenhaal carries through the whole movie. He's he's kind of the sole thread apart from the Zodiac himself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'd agree. So aside from camera work and palette, what do you think that David Fincher uses as a technique, like to kind of capitalize on this this matter of fact, frank look at life and kind of a disturbing aspect, so to speak?
So I think that the themes are always very dark. We kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of there's a lot of questioning humanity. So I think if we look at Seven, it's a lot of
it's an indictment on like humanity's sins, right? Like the whole motivation for the killer is
it's the most direct.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But it's also direct, but it also is it's kind of a subtle indictment on humanity itself when they're actually investigating this guy and they kind of find out more and more about the case where it obviously is matter of fact the way that it presents the 7 deadly sins, but also they manifest in different ways throughout the film, which I think is really clever.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if this film was made in 2018?
Yeah, that's
like, how would those sins? How would our 7 deadly sins be depicted these days? I mean, you would have to think an Instagram model would take the place of Pride.
Oh, for sure,
like,
100%.
I mean, I'm just just thinking out loud here, but gluttony, it might not even be food at this point.
Shopping or something like that. It would have to be
shopping or drugs or something. I mean, drugs was part of it.
Yeah, like revenge is like a rat beef or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little absurd. I don't think it could be made anymore because I think other films out there, whether it's superheroes or whether it's the constant need to capitalize on just intelligence and the corporate, like your what you have as a studio, like what brands you have. I can't think of the word right now. It'll come to me.
Well, so I think like I mean, he kind of paved the way for himself by like he made movies that many people didn't really want to make, or maybe just weren't interested in making those kind of like dark exploratory movies. Where I mean, obviously, a lot of studios, like we were talking about A24 before for the podcast, they've kind of made the name for themselves by doing really kind of cutting edge and almost not morose. It's not the right word, but I guess just like darkly specific subject matter for the most part.
People focused.
Yeah, exactly. They're character focused and they're not always cheery and joyful and rah rah movies. But I feel like if people tried to make those movies now, they probably wouldn't get that much of a draw because I mean, typically people don't want to go to the movies to feel like shit after they see them. They want to feel, invigorated but I feel like he's paved a way for himself where even if he has a more dark subject matter, people will go and see his movies and people will, evidently find themselves in their movies, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking up A24 now. They did Hereditary this past year,
which was very good, by the way.
I didn't see it. It's messed up.
It's fucked. It's not as scary as the previews would have you believe it's going to be, but it's a very psychological and I mean, as a movie nerd, it's kind of a ripoff of Rosemary's Maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
I've
yeah,
heard the same.
but it's very good, very very good. But that's like I'm saying, it's A24. You know, they've kind of set themselves apart from being in the kind of mainstream movie audiences where they're just making movies to pump out content, but they're actually exploring darker themes, and that's something that Dave Fincher kind of made his name for. Like,
Yeah.
Even in Alien 3, even like his worst movie by far. But if you watch the director's cut of it, it's actually pretty interesting because there was a lot of tension between Fincher and the studio to make like a blockbuster movie because they were already riding on the huge success of Alien and Aliens.
Well, I mean, you go from Ridley Scott to James Cameron to David Fincher's very first movie.
Exactly, and so Dave Fincher actually had a lot of the strange camera work and the color paletting that he had, but the studio basically overhauled and said, no, like, I don't want to do this with you, and they basically kind of overhauled the script. And if you ask Dave Fincher about it, he's like, oh, it's not my movie. So if you actually, I mean, the director's cut is not a great movie by any means, but it's a lot more interesting than what people would have you believe about it.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I mean, I just got the regular one. I think I bought the Alien like 4-movie box set for like $20 because Best Buy was selling it like that.
Yeah.
Great deal. Check it out. Best Buy, cut the check.
Let's pictures on Best Buy right now.
But yeah, so I mean, I haven't seen the director's cut. I actually, honestly, I told you I was going to watch as many movies as I could coming up into this.
Yeah.
I started with that one. Mm-hmm. I couldn't finish it. It was not good.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not a good film, and so if you watch like the actual theatrical cut, then it's not a good movie. But there are a couple interesting tracking shots they do, and a couple of interesting like dialogue scenes. And if you watch the director's cut, those are more fleshed out than they would be like in the theatrical cut. And that kind of speaks to the fact that he had a poignant style even from when he started making movies. And obviously he expanded on that when he actually had creative control of the movies, because obviously when you step into a massive franchise like Alien and Aliens, then you're able to not really put that much of your own style into it.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming off of Aliens, which was
huge, like one of the best action movies of all time.
I would argue it's top 5.
Action movies for sure.
James Cameron's probably the best action movie director out there.
It's what he does. Yeah,
it's just what he does. He does these big spectacle action movies. Coming off of Ridley Scott's more methodical, cerebral film,
the isolationist in the space,
exactly. Of the horror, like no one can hear you scream. That was the tagline.
Yeah.
He wasn't really given a fair shot, I would say,
which sucks because he's a very talented director. Obviously,
clearly, I forget who the studio was on that. It was probably Paramount, if I had to guess.
I think so.
They clearly didn't give him enough credit, but it was also his first movie, so it's kind of a perfect storm of. They probably regret it now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at his track record now.
But then you get into the problem I have with director's cuts is that you get into director's cuts like Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman director's cut. Not only is it like 3 hours and 15 minutes long,
it makes no goddamn sense.
It only makes sense if you watch the whole thing in detail, and the tiny details that they cut out for time didn't add a whole lot.
Yeah.
So that's what director's cuts become.
Yeah.
In the 90s, they were worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, I feel like there was a lot more stringency with you have to make a movie a certain runtime. Like when movie studios were first trying to get like,
see it.
Yeah, exactly. So they wanted to like, appeal to the masses. And obviously when they have movies come up, they want them to be a specific time frame. But when you have a director's cut, you can put in as much as you want, which is, perfect example of that is like fucking like Blade Runner, for example, where if you watch the theatrical cut and the final cut, like the 8th version of it, they're completely different films, and you walk away with it feeling completely differently. And so nowadays you can be, I guess, a little more, I don't want to say pretentious, but more drawn out with some of the themes that you want to explore, because people will want to see a movie because it's good these days. And not like my earlier point was like, they don't want to feel shitty when they go to a movie, but people will stay in their seats for a longer amount of time.
Well,
because,
they paid enough money to see it nowadays.
Oh yeah, what's it, $19 for the average ticket price, something like that?
It's not cheap. But I'm with you. People are more forgiving and with some of the stuff. I mean, we're talking about A24 again. You get movies like Bo Burnham's 8th Grade.
Very
people
good.
Are actually people are actually willing to go see these and pay for them.
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be just a blockbuster. And now it's kind of almost calendarized. That's not a word.
No, for sure. I agree. It's like the dog shit comes out in January and February.
Yep.
Like the decent movies come out in like March and April. Summer blockbusters, April
May
to
now,
fucking like to August, and then you get Oscar bait. Now
and awards season is starting almost in September now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. I mean, The Nun isn't going to win anything, but you've got some other stuff coming out. I mean, I can't wait to see Widows. That looks really good. But it's almost like you can tell when the best movies are coming out, and that I think they're going for recency bias with the Academy. Get Out was January last year, or February.
Yeah, February. No, actually, no, it was March. It was March 6th. I think it was released.
Was it? Okay.
I think so.
So even so, it's still too early in the year. So if you put out a movie in October, November, and the Oscars are the first weekend in March now.
Yeah,
the Academy is much more willing to give it a fairer shot.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you said, like memory is kind of elusive in that way, where you kind of remember the best movies that you just saw, which is kind of unfair because I mean, someone could release a masterpiece in fucking January for all we know, but they'll never obviously be
I mean, there are the exceptions. Get Out was an exception.
Oh, for sure, and I mean, obviously, we're gonna fanboy about David Fincher, but Get Out's one of my favorite movies ever. I love that movie.
It's really, really solid. I mean, I saw it with a packed crowd, and I saw it with.
That's the way to see it, man. You can't see it by yourself. Like you got to have the audience participation. Like when Rod came back on the screen. And the end of the movie, like,
so good.
Like I almost stood up and clapped. Like it was just
the people in my auditorium did clap when he friggin' hit that dude in the face with the lacrosse stick.
Oh yeah,
it was amazing. I actually wrote an article about that, but
yeah. Well, we'll put it in the link
we'll link it. We'll link it. Sorry, I'm self-promoting.
All right, but anyway, so back to Fincher. So, Alien 3, dog shit. What was the movie after that though?
7.
Yeah, so he made one of the best thrillers and best detective movies of all time on a second go. Like that just shows this guy was made to make movies, which is just like it's like Quentin Tarantino said, he's the most exciting filmmaker because on a second go he made a masterpiece. It's like what the hell else is he gonna do? Like as he gets better and better with it. And I think so. One of the best things about David Fincher is, and you can see this in 7, and then more so with like the Zodiac and the Social Network and Gone Girl. He is perfect at blending practical effects with CGI. Like it's what he does, and he does.
You were talking about this.
Yeah, he like there are shots that you watch in 7 or in the Zodiac or in the Social Network where you think, oh, they just went outside and filmed something. You know, they just filmed the lakescape or they filmed inside a building, and most of it is CGI when you actually look at the behind the scenes, for example.
Right,
and that's crazy. It's like you have this aesthetic that's so believable that you don't even notice it. And that was even before CGI was even like big, and like the crime scenes, like the really fat guy, for example.
Yeah,
like
Are you telling me that wasn't real?
That wasn't real.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Like when they're zooming in on him, like when they come back. Yeah, all the fat spilling over wasn't real. Nuts, right?
Oh my god.
Right. Like and the Social Network, for example, I was convinced that Armie Hammer was a fucking twin.
You're not kidding.
For so long, because like his face perfectly matches the guy, and his build perfectly matches the guy. I legitimately thought that so they had a guy they had Armie Hammer like voice over the other guy in a booth.
Yeah,
they had him.
It was Josh Pence.
Yeah, exactly. So they had him like wear the electrodes on his face, and then after the fact, they just mapped his face onto that guy.
Yeah.
But the fact that it looks so good is just
he was. I mean, you hear about every movie doing post for audio and post for dialogue so that like they can get the clearest version.
Yeah.
And looping and reloop. He probably had to do reloop for his face.
Exactly.
For the second guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, to your point. You know, Fincher got his like CGI starts on Return of the Jedi.
No shit.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently he assisted on some of the visual effects processing for that film. I had no idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'll confirm that right now. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I don't have a great eye for this because we were talking about this earlier, but I always like to go into the films believing as much of it is practical as possible.
No, exactly. I believed it was real, and then I see it after the fact. I'm like, holy shit! Like that was fabricated, but that was so believable. Like that makes it even more impressive because, I mean, I want it to be real, and then in the movie, I legitimately think it's real. It's not like I'm suspending disbelief, like for Marvel or something like that. I legitimately, exactly. I legitimately think that there's the actual thing on screen for me. Like there's two guys that look exactly the same, like talking in The Social Network, for example.
Yeah, so I can confirm, 1983, he was assistant cameraman. And then he also worked on Indiana Jones Temple of Doom.
Really?
Yeah, as visual effects.
Interesting.
So I guess that's probably where he cut his teeth doing it.
Yeah.
And then really took it over the top. I mean, I wonder if music videos like had a part in that to see like how much you could possibly do. It was in the 80s, but
Yeah.
you know. But back to your point, give me some other examples, and I will probably not have even recognized.
So the Zodiac, for example, like all those cityscape scenes in L.A. or not in L.A.
San Fran.
San Fran, that's where it was. Sorry. They're like those night shot scenes where like they're like on the street and like Jake Gyllenhaal's running down the street. Like, so the whole cityscape, like that's all green screen. Like the shit beyond the lampposts, like, you know, lighting the street, that's all like blue screen and shit.
That's absurd.
It's not. If you look at like a behind the scenes version of like, you know, Dave Fincher's like CGI effects, like unmasked, like he's just is prophetic at making sure that like his practical effects, his actors, and his CGI just blend just perfectly.
It is. It's remarkable. I mean, I figured the one like the tracking shot of the cab over the city, that one seemed to be CGI, but like, I wonder if like he shot it in a specific way to like resemble it. And I bet he did.
Oh, for sure.
To make it look like 68
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah, they built a very convincing set, but like, I mean, like the thing that you're not looking for is like the stuff in the frame, like the lamppost and the mailbox. You're looking for the cityscape. That's what really sells the scene. And all that shit was the most convincing part of the scene. That was all CGI,
fake,
which is just like, that's incredible.
I mean, it has to be easier on the actors. They only go to one place every day.
But also they have to act like they're actually in an environment that's believable.
But
like,
nowadays it's almost like commonplace.
You know, oh, for sure. But in a movie that's like a dark, gritty drama, like you're usually on set for something like that. Like obviously
it's as real as possible.
Yeah, like, and that just proves that like he's not only a great director and a great. I think he did cinematography for some of his earlier films, but but also like he's a great director not only like mapping effects, but he's also a great director in having his actors convey a certain sentiment, even in an environment that's really fabricated, which is just nuts. Like fuck, I had an example, but it fucking flew away. Damn it. Sad.
That's what happens when you're like in front of these things.
Yeah, man.
Your mind just goes.
They're pretty sexy microphones, though, right? Like
they are. Where did you get these?
From a fucking guy on Craigslist, man. He sold me the two booms, the clips, the microphones, and the cloud lifters for like a screaming deal, and gave me four microphone cords for I think like $650, something like that.
You're not messing around here.
Yeah, man. We
Sorry, I'm a guest, guys. I'm in awe.
Well, we'll have you on again, man. This is a good conversation. So
he went from Alien 3 to 7 to The Game and then Fight Club. So we haven't talked about The Game a whole lot.
I mean, The Game is. I feel like a lot of people give that movie not enough credit because it kind of. I feel like David Fincher's career was so overshadowed by the success of 7. True. Because it came out of nowhere and it became like one of the smartest and most enthralling thrillers of all time. Mm-hmm. Where if you're trying to follow it up with something like The Game, it's not going to get the credit it deserves. However, I will say that Michael Douglas's and Sean Penn's performances in those movies are fantastic. And
Sean Penn only had about 20 minutes, maybe.
Exactly, but like you remember him in that movie. You remember his character.
Yeah.
And Michael Douglas gave a great performance, but also just I feel like the concept of that movie was so fascinating. Where legitimately, so if people haven't seen it, there's this guy who's I guess kind of a yuppie for
he's an investment banker.
Yeah, he's a rich guy. He's got a lot going for him and stuff. So his brother comes to him and gives him an envelope with a phone number in it, and basically has him call it. And you know, Michael Douglas asks, "What is this?" And he says, "It changed my life." So this guy does what he says, and then his entire life, like, you know, scene after scene after scene, just goes to shit. And
in like the weirdest way as possible.
Honestly, like there's a lot of like espionage and like voyeurism in the movie, and it's just we won't spoil it, but
we can't because it's the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's a really strange film, but I really liked it. And actually, that was the first Fincher movie that I saw, even before Fight Club or something.
It's on Netflix right now, folks.
Is it?
Yeah,
really?
Check it out.
Interesting. But yeah, like Fincher always, even if the premise is not very cerebral, he always has a good knack for making his movies very heady. And it kind of it makes you examine, for example, like when I saw The Game for the first time, I thought there was, a camera and a stuffed animal like Gary here, for example.
It's true. No, I mean, it's such a unique movie, and coming off of Seven, it was very different.
Yeah.
It wasn't as disturbing. It was just creepy.
For sure.
And even like the posters and everything, it was just weird to me.
Yeah, like the puzzle pieces and shit.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael Douglas he crushed it in this movie because he plays. I mean, he had been around for a while at this point. I think it was 90. I'm looking at it now, 97. Sorry.
Been around for like 20, 30 years, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been in films for about 20 years, so clearly he got the right actor. But the thought I had was, whenever I watch a Fincher movie, I don't even care about who the screenwriter is until Sorkin. Because it's not the writer's movie. It's a Fincher movie.
Yeah. And like you said with Sorkin, like that pairing was so synergistic. It was actually kind of like stupid. Like did that win Best Picture that year?
No, it didn't.
It really should have.
It didn't. I'll figure out who did.
It was 2010, right? That came out,
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, so I mean, Fincher is known for being a huge perfectionist, and like he's known for being kind of a Nazi on set. And Sorkin is not known to collaborate with anybody on his scripts unless he's actually like writing a made-for-TV episode. But I mean, the fact that those two kind of synergistically played off of each other, and Sorkin took notes from Fincher and vice versa. I mean, like I'll be frank about it. Social Network is probably one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and I think that should have won 2010, like for no contest at all.
Yeah, the Hurt Locker one.
Which I like the Hurt Locker a lot. I thought it was very good, but
I like it too. But it's not.
But it's not the Social Network.
It doesn't hold up.
Yeah, but I feel like there was a lot of like fondness for the military personnel and stuff like that, and also a lot of the politics with Avatar coming out at the same time, and Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron.
That's a good point.
Just to segue in that, the fact that Avatar was nominated for Best Picture. It was Dances with Smurfs.
No, it was Pocahontas with Smurfs.
No, it's Dances with Smurfs, where it's like, a guy is sent to kill people, and then he becomes indoctrinated them, and then he's got to defend them from the very people that sent him in the first place.
Yeah, that's John Smith and Pocahontas.
Yeah, and that's also fucking Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, no, it's exactly true.
But that proves the point. It's very derivative storytelling, even though they had a lot of good visual gimmicks.
Okay, so their names were different. The planet was different, and they were different species.
But the same thing.
But the same damn thing. I like James Cameron.
Yeah,
I like James Cameron's movies. Not as much as some other people.
Yeah.
I like them fine.
Yeah.
Titanic, okay. It's a solid movie.
I'm glad you said that, because I think Titanic is probably one of the most overrated movies of all time.
100%.
Yeah, and so this is the kind of and this is a major segue, but I don't give a shit. Whatever, it's our podcast.
It's our podcast.
I feel like people conflate making a lot of money and having critical positive response with being a fantastic film, and that's just not always mutually synonymous. Because I mean, Titanic for a while was the highest grossing movie like ever.
I think it still is.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll check, but yeah.
But for the time, not counting inflation and stuff, but
yeah.
But and the same thing with Avatar. Avatar was this movie that made just all the money and then some, and they were both nominated for Best Picture, and yes, they both had some good performances in it, and they did a lot of cool visual gimmicks and stuff, but I really don't think those two movies should have really been nominated for Best Picture. I mean, if we're looking at just the quality of the film and not like all the other factors considered, I don't think that it should have been really as highly regarded as it was. I mean, that's just me, though. I'm kind of cynical like that, but yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think those two are quality movies. They're great FX or TNT movies. That's mean. But they are. They're great cable TV movies. On the other hand, you get The Terminator, and T2.
Yeah,
those are incredible. I mean, The Terminator, I don't even think was nominated.
Yeah,
and that was incredible.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The performances aren't going to be great because it's Arnold and Linda Hamilton, who's fine, fine. But Arnold was just getting into it. But the quality of the movie was so good.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Aliens, of course, was not, because the Academy didn't even understand how to deal with that at that point.
Which is I'm kind of glad they're doing the whole blockbuster
Yeah, I was going to
genre
ask you,
now.
how do you feel about that?
So I think that it actually is a good thing because there are a lot of blockbusters that aren't given their day in the sun because they're a superhero movie. Oh, they're just like a blockbuster to make money.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of like great screenplays and a lot of great films that are, more than just special effects extravaganzas. Like, for example, I think that Captain America: The Winter Soldier is a really, really fantastic espionage movie. And the fact that it's hidden in the context of a superhero film didn't allow the screenplay or the film to get the credit that it deserved because
That's fair.
it's wrapped up in the MCU and the MCU is a big cash cow and all that stuff. And I get all that and I sympathize with that. But I think movies like that, even if they have like some great aspects to them, they're never going to be awards baits. So I feel like this this genre of awards that's going to be in there, I feel like it could be just like, okay, who makes the most money at the end of the day? But I really hope that they actually look objectively at the films that are going to be presented, and I hope that they actually pick the one that's a really good film. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you run into the issue of, to your point, most highest earning. Highest earning this year was probably Black Panther,
Well,
if I had to guess.
Yeah, actually, I think Infinity War might have beaten it though. I think Infinity War made like
I don't think domestically.
Check it out.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I don't think so. But back to the point, it sometimes it either has to be like numbers based, so earnings.
Yeah.
Or then it comes back to the Academy's whole issue in the first place is that it's all subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
So you would get a movie. I'm trying to think of what earned something like the Mission Impossible movies. The last 3 have been actually pretty good movies and earning.
The last one was
monies,
fantastic. Yeah.
but they haven't been earning as much money as the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
They just haven't. But which one's better? According to numbers, it's Marvel.
Yeah.
But based on the movies themselves, it's probably Mission.
Yeah, I mean, subjective opinion aside, I'm a Marvel kind of guy, and I thought Infinity War was a masterpiece. But I mean, I will agree that on the most part, I think the Mission Impossible movies are probably better in terms of quality than some of the Marvel movies for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it is Black Panther at $700 million this year.
Domestically?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does Infinity War make domestically?
678.
Oh,
domestic.
on its tails. Wow.
Much higher internationally.
Oh yeah, no,
Globally?
1.5 bill. I think
Something absurd. Yeah.
ridiculous.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was
2.
What?
2.04 billion worldwide.
Holy crap!
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these movies don't mess around.
Good lord.
Yeah, so I wonder if something like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo
Yeah,
wasn't nominated apart from Rooney Mara's performance.
yeah.
Would that be considered one of the best pop movies or I don't even know what the word's called.
Yeah, exactly. So then that calls in the question like, okay, so what constitutes a blockbuster? Is it just like a thing that has mass appeal? Is it just the monetary gain? Is it the stars associated with it? Is it like the whole cinematic universe kind of promulgating it?
It's hard.
Exactly. So I think like the criteria of it will be a little bit of a challenge for the first year or so, but I feel like it will, at the end of the day, result in more good than bad because it'll actually give blockbuster movies that are blockbusters a little bit more credit than they actually are getting.
Yeah. Well, I think it took the Oscars 2-3 years to figure out the whole 10 film Best Picture inclusion, and that was after Dark Knight.
Yeah,
because that Dark Knight was not included.
That was such a huge snub.
I mean,
unbelievable.
They got some out of it, so Heath Ledger won. And I think Christopher Nolan might have gotten a nod, but it was not Best Picture nominated as far as I'm aware. But it came out of that, so it'll be interesting. I love the Oscars because and I'm sure you do too, because we're movie people.
Yeah,
and I try to see as many of the 10 or 8 or however many they have every year.
Yeah,
as possible. But it's hard, and because they're not in release for long, you kind of have. But what's interesting is that they're starting to release them on digital.
Yeah,
before the Oscars, which is great.
Yeah, you actually watch them in the comfort of your own home, which is good. Which also it constitutes a different threat where it's like you don't really have a lot of incentive to go to the movies anymore, which is kind of like sad. Yeah. But I mean, I would rather see all the movies that I can have more informed opinion rather than just
absolutely
pay all the movie to go to the movies. But a nice little segue. That was good.
Tangent, but back to the list.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So we just talked about the game a little bit.
Fight Club was next, and then did you remember you did Panic Room?
He did Panic Room?
He did Panic Room. I had no fucking idea.
Okay, so he made Alien 3 and then one other kind of mediocre movie,
Yeah.
Panic
Room wasn't bad.
it wasn't bad. It
was just not.
It was a derivative thriller. Like that's
It wasn't laced in what he normally does.
exactly.
Humanity.
I had
It
no
was-
idea that he did Panic Room. He just said it. I had no
didn't
idea.
either. I did some research this week. That was it.
Yeah.
But we got to touch on Fight Club.
Fight Club, it's one of those movies that obviously warrants another watch because after the revelation, spoiler alert, that Tyler Durden is the main character, and I feel like there are so many different bids to the identity of the main character throughout the film that you don't even realize, and even like after he realizes it and he plays through his mind like him being Tyler in that aspect, so to speak.
Yeah.
There are so many things in the movie that aren't even touched on. Like
So true.
yeah. For example, when he goes to his boss and he says like, you're gonna give me this X amount of salary for how many months, and then he beats the shit out of himself. And then if Friesen says, "This reminds me exactly of my first fight with Tyler," and he's beating the shit out of himself in his first fight with Tyler. So
there are parts in the movie where Tyler's literally glitching in and out of his vision.
exactly, which is like,
But nobody knew because it was the first time that it ever happened.
exactly. So it's like you think like he's just a crazy person, but you also realize that at the end of the movie, holy crap, he has split personality disorder.
Yeah.
Which is just nuts.
It's crazy.
And I feel like that movie, it kind of reaffirmed the fact that Fincher was making movies that explored themes that weren't really well realized in the scape of cinema before he came along.
That's true.
Where it's like, they presented identity disorders as like a guy who likes to drink and get fucked up and like he pours fucking lye on himself and all that shit. And so it was a really morose, almost macabre way of dealing with all of those things about mental illness. But at the end of the movie, when he's holding, Helena Bonham Carter's hand, to see all the things, destroying around them, you get a really impactful symbolic representation of what it means to be truly burdened with a mental illness, which I think is really interesting because you don't think about that throughout the movie. You think it's a really crazy guy, but once you see it in its finality and you see it a couple times, you realize that it's really about mental illness at core.
I mean, the first time you watch it, it's a social satire.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's taking down the man, it's taking down corporate culture and really like being an individual.
Yeah.
The second time you watch it, to your point, it's okay, this guy is fucked up the whole time.
Yeah.
Not even fucked up. Not fucked up. He's got a mental issue. And he has two personalities and he doesn't even know. There's a point where he travels without even knowing it.
Yeah.
No. Like Tyler travels as
Oh,
him.
yeah, true.
He doesn't even know it.
Yeah. And then some of the scenes, like he witnesses, like, when they kidnap the dad from Step Brothers, in the bathroom.
yeah.
It's like, do not fuck with us. And like he's watching it from a third person.
But
But it's actually him, which is like this complete dissociative personality. It's almost like it's almost like Split and James McAvoy.
Yeah, I mean, you really start to realize things are going wrong when he goes to where, like, he flies to his city, and then the people are like, "We don't know what you're talking about, sir."
Yeah, it's
and
nuts.
yet you realize that he's been talking to these people without even knowing it.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Anything worth addressing?
No. I just want to make sure that everything's all good. Yeah. We're
Hey
good.
guys.
Hey. But yeah, like it's such a. Well, I wouldn't say it's an indictment, but it's almost a cautionary tale where it's like even if you're not mentally ill, if you let these things in your life go unaddressed, they can have really toxic consequences. Which is interesting because. The guy, if you even if you take the mental illness out of the equation, he's a guy who's struggling with aggression and self-loathing and greed and all of this shit.
Yep.
And so as a person, if you're watching it and you don't suffer from mental illness, you can still suffer from all those vices that are plaguing this guy, and you can actually look at the movie and have kind of a cautionary perspective on them, which is kind of cool.
And again, this brings up the question. This was 96.
Yeah.
What if this was made now?
Yeah.
A lot of these movies were so revolutionary that I don't feel like they could be made now.
Yeah.
Like
they formed the scape of cinema today, which is just nuts.
What I'm really hoping never happens is they make a female version of Fight Club. That would not trying to be mean.
No.
Here
No.
like
Okay,
insensitive,
but this kind of gets to another topic I want to talk about. The fact that people are remaking movies now and not only movies, but movies that have influenced cinema in a really profound way is sacrilege to me. Like, for example, I don't give a shit if it was the best female cast of all time. Don't touch the original Ghostbusters. Just don't touch it. Like that
It wasn't great, so they clearly failed.
like just don't touch those movies. Like don't touch what's another one that made
Oceans?
exactly. Like and like even though it's a slightly different plot, like the whole ethos was still the exact same thing. It's like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand the purpose of them. It's to
so do I, but like, I get it. There are more ways to make money though than just like, oh, we got a concept here. Let's make a little spin on it. Find out what happens next.
unfortunately it's all a money grab.
Exactly, which is just sad. It's like,
And we probably sound pretty misogynist.
no,
Slightly misogynist.
okay, no, there are a lot of all-female cast movies that I really like. For example, I think Bridesmaids is genius. I
love it.
love Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids is like
Pitch
one
Perfect.
of
There were three.
Pitch
of them.
Perfect, 100%. I like two of them. The third one, not so much. But
I didn't even see the third one, but still.
But no, there are a lot of great films with female leads. For example, I'm not saying that female leads like can't be in movies at all. Like they're they're like look at the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, for example. Rooney Mara
Yeah, we're
gave like
circling
an
back.
Oscar-worthy performance. But
Nominated.
But if you're going to remake a movie and then the draw of said movie is just the fact that there are women starring in it, that's more offensive than women it is to men, where it's like, oh, we're going to give you this toxic piece of crap, but now there's women starring it, so you'll go see it, right, you idiot?
Yeah.
Like,
Right, Becky?
Yeah.
No, it's true. But the one of Fincher's things, besides his color palette, besides his themes, besides his camera movement, he's got a lot of strong female leads out there.
for sure. I mean, look at what's the
He
girl?
started with Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, even the movie wasn't that great. I mean, he came to the forefront of
He
that.
started with a strong female protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Helena Bonham Carter too in Fight Club, I mean,
Yep.
she's like a very independent woman herself. I mean, The Social Network has a bunch of good female leads, and also, I mean, Gone Girl with
Gone Girl had
yeah.
Rosamund Pike, incredible performance from
yeah,
her.
nuts.
The Game had a pretty good female character.
Who was that again?
I can't remember. Her name was Cindy in the movie, but I can't remember the actress.
I can't remember either.
Deborah Unger, maybe. Fight Club had Helena Bonham Carter. Panic Room was two women. Zodiac did not. That was a
Yeah.
different one. Benjamin Button had. Speaking of Benjamin Button,
Yeah.
Benjamin Button had Kate Blanchett.
Yep.
Social Network, Girl with Dragon Tattoo, House of Cards clearly became
Yeah.
Robin Wright's show.
Yeah, because Kevin Spacey's a fucking creep.
Yeah, that's beside. Yeah, Mindhunter again kind of went away from that. But yeah, he's got a very strong theme of strong, powerful female protagonists.
Yeah, and I feel like that's not him saying, "Okay, I got to have a woman, and she's got to be really powerful." He looks at the character. He doesn't look at the gender, the sexual orientation, or like anything like that. He looks at, okay, what's going to make the most compelling character for me to tell this story, and then he selects accordingly. Which is, and obviously, when you don't have when you have source material to work from, like for example, Fight Club, you actually have, okay, I have to cast a woman that's like a magnetic performer, and so Helena Bonham Carter, obviously.
Yep.
But then when you have Gone Girl, which is like, you know, there's so much left to be actually put on screen where Rosamund Pike really made that role her own, because I mean, Gone Girl, the book, I've read it, and obviously like the character of that she plays is really fleshed out, but I mean, you don't really get how important that she is and her actual just slight facial expressions are until you actually see the movie, because when you see it visually play out in front of you, it's a much different experience just reading it, because so much is left to your own devices.
How does the movie compare to that book?
I haven't read the book or seen the movie in a while, but I think that because there are multiple narrators in the book, I think that I like the film more because there's more subtle things visually that you can actually pick up on, like when they're just walking, for example, like in this bleak atmosphere. I feel like Fincher's style was really catered to that movie, which I really liked.
Yeah, it was a really, really, really quality movie.
Yeah.
It's not going to get the recognition because it's just it could have been made for TV. Not saying it was a bad movie.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones that could have been a short TV show. We talked about that as well.
Yeah.
There are a few. Benjamin Button, another one. But Gone Girl was unique to me in that it kind of took his powerful woman and powerful female protagonist theme and kind of tipped it on its head.
Yeah.
She became the villain.
Yeah.
And ultimately you realized that, wow, she did everything here.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just looking at this, the actual
spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. but I mean, just looking at the actual the filmmaking standpoint, that's something that was really creative about the film, because the first shot and the last shot are basically the exact same thing, but you know so much more at the end of the film, where that shot takes on a completely different meaning, where in the first time you see it, like, she looks up at him from his chest and like has this kind of innocent candor, and then basically does the exact same facial expression, and it has this kind of morose and methodical and psychotic like quality
it's
to
just
it.
a slight change of the mouth shape.
Exactly. Like it's a slight, almost smug grin, which is like,
It's weird.
Like you can't convey that in a book unless you actually like draw a picture. But with a film, like you get all that and more, which is that tiny like inflection of your mouth, which is nuts.
Well, what kind of director thinks to get a shot over Ben Affleck's shoulder while he's laying down?
Yeah, that's true.
It's wild.
Yeah, he has a pretty insane attention to detail.
Well, and back to your point about the visual effects thing, he moves through rooms and moves through like landscapes,
virtual
in ways
cameras,
that are not real, but it gives you such a sense of scope of where you are.
Yeah, like Fight Club is a great example of that, where like it goes through the kitchen and through the windows and shit.
Yep.
And
or down through the parking garage.
Exactly. Like it orients you into this world, and like even though you know it's not real, you feel like you're actually there, and you're almost
know how far apart things are, how long it'll take to get somewhere, where they are in respect to each other. And it's all through, to your point, CGI, but mixed in with real practical effects,
where it's so believable. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
It's pretty amazing.
I mean, we can keep sucking his dick all the livelong day.
Hey now. He's in my top 5, but
yeah. All right, but I think we should really talk about The Social Network. I think that's like probably the most impressive film in his filmography for me.
Can we agree that is the best one he's done so far?
Absolutely. Okay. Like no contest. And so I feel like number one, all the performances are fantastic, like across the board. Like Jesse Eisenberg and Armie Hammer. What you say?
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield was fantastic. Rooney Mara, even though she had a small part, was fantastic. Even Rashida Jones, like, who was like the legal assistant, was fantastic.
She was basically the audience. It was wild.
Exactly. She played the audience surrogate, which is pretty nuts. But I think that cold, kind of almost detached aesthetic that he has, it really lends itself very, very well to a story about, you know, egotism and fucking over people. And it did it in a way where it made it palatable. It didn't feel like you were watching an asshole, you know, fuck everybody in his life. You witnessed a flawed character, but when you really look at it from a third party perspective, you think, yeah, this guy's an asshole. which is just like, it's so funny because that opening scene, which is like more or less iconic now.
In the bar or
the bar.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when you hear him obsess about himself, and then a person stops him and says, no one's not going to like you because you're a nerd. It'll be because you're an asshole. Like, and I feel like the whole movie at that point is him proving to other people and himself that he's not an asshole. And he does it in a really roundabout and terrible way. But at the end of the movie, when he's actually requesting the person on Facebook, and he keeps doing it, it's
at the very end.
Yeah, it's a really subtle thing about how he's just striving to be a better person, even though he did it in a terrible way throughout the entire film.
Best line from that opening scene was, "Dating you is like dating a stairmaster."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, no, good.
And another thing was like
Aaron Sorkin, classic.
But another thing about Aaron Sorkin, where it's like, he has the two people operating on different planes, where like, you know, one person is talking about something else, the other person follows that, but then they go into a different subject, and that person's still like talking about that. And so like Rooney Mara also says, you say two things at once, I don't know what I'm supposed to focus on.
It's true.
Which is very indicative of Sorkin's writing, which I think it's why it lends itself so well to Fincher's filmography, because all of his films operate in all these different planes, where we were talking about, like the first time you see it, it makes this different impression than a different rewatch, for example.
It's true.
Yeah.
Do you know that scene, at least for the main part of their dialogue, they were given, I think it was like 180 seconds to say the whole thing, and they had to speed through it.
180 seconds?
I don't know if that's the right number, but they were given an amount of time. And they were a bit like 30 seconds over on their first few reads. So they had to accelerate and just continue just to fire back and forth. It shows Sorkin and his ability as a screenwriter to make something very interesting and quick, but it requires Fincher's hand to move and act quickly and catch each thing. And obviously, that seems pretty easy. It's 2 cameras on people.
Yeah.
2 different sides of a table. Excuse me. But he does that so perfectly. And like, each camera will move with their movements, and that's one of the things that he does the best. I think that's his signature.
Yeah, that's a narrator thing we were talking about earlier in the podcast, where it's like he has the camera not as like a lens to view something, but it also is its own character, it maps the characters.
But looking at them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why like you have the driving scene from Zodiac, for example, where like you literally are following it. It's almost like you're God and watching it like omnipotently. But ostensibly, like you're locked into the character's motions, almost like you are the character. So, combined with that kind of bleak aesthetic that he has, it kind of locks you into that moment because that's how you would view it. You view things in a very steel blue and gray kind of aesthetic, like it's just rained outside. Which is, I think it's a really clever, and people talk about Fincher's filmmaking where it's like it's very disaffected and dispassionate. And I completely disagree. I mean, even though the script writing of the characters may be cold, the filmmaking is very intimate, even though it's presenting it in a very cold way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're meant to embrace the characters, even though they might be villainous or they might be assholes. You're meant to sympathize and understand their plights because you feel as though you're a part of them, and that comes to camera work, that comes to the color. I mean, we're sitting here right now. Not everything's orange and red.
Yeah, exactly.
It's blue and gray. That's just like when it's not nice outside. That's how life is. So he's basically filming in a not nice day.
Yeah.
But it's not that it's dispassionate. It's that he wants you to focus where he wants you to focus.
Exactly. Like you're not distracted by anything. You're locked into the character's motions, and that's why the camera movements play in so well to what he's trying to convey, because you're not focused on a bright light in the distance, but you're actually focused on what you're supposed to be, which is the dialogue, the scene, the character, the camera movements, which is, like you said, it's just it makes it much more personal than it would be.
Do you ever play that game where you're watching a movie you've seen many times, and instead of watching the action, you watch like the characters on the sides?
Yep.
Like, what are they doing? Are they acting well?
Yeah.
You can't do that in his movies.
No, for sure.
There's nobody else to watch.
Yeah, he does the what's the technique? Shallow depth of field, where it's like, you have something really close to the camera. It's like it's blocked in, and like same thing with the Social Network, where it's like they're in that party at the Sigma, whatever, the Jewish fraternity.
Yeah.
And everything else is blurred in the background, but the only people in focus are Eduardo and Mark, which is
so you can't even watch what other people are doing because to your point, the only people in focus are them. And even more so with Fincher, it's not even that there's like 2 or 3 people in focus. It's one person.
Yeah.
He's very focused on the movement and interaction of a single character at a time.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to make a movie that way, but somehow he does it.
Yeah. Like he and so back to that that comparison I made with Richard Linklater. Rick Linklater, he makes life, he makes film present life as it is, but he does it in a fond way. And Fincher presents life as it is, but it's how you would actually view it. Like,
Sure.
I'm talking to you. I'm not looking at like, my bottles of beautiful tequila on the wall over there. I'm not looking at your shiny beer or whatever, or your shoes. I'm literally just focused on you, not the bright camera screen. I'm literally focused on you. And that makes it just a very palatable experience to somebody who uses cinema to actually convey how life is supposed to be represented. And like there's 2 sides of the coin. There's Linklater, who actually he presents like, looking back on your own memories and being fond of them and sentimental, but
he has a very nostalgic look.
Yeah, exactly. But Fincher, it's like if you walked outside, it's almost like his aesthetic kind of hijacks the way you see things. Like, like the No,
it's entirely true. It's a focus from one set of eyes.
Yeah.
Not a group.
Yeah, which is pretty nuts. I mean, what would you want to see him do, like as a filmmaker in the future?
I think he needs another biopic.
Biopic?
Social Network was great. It was as close to a biopic as he's gotten.
Yeah.
But I think he should do one on somebody kind of out there. I don't have a good example, but I saw him try to do a war movie with Benjamin Button.
Yeah. But it wasn't really a war movie.
No,
though.
but there were some sequences that weren't.
It was set in the spirit of a war movie. Yeah.
But the war sequences weren't great.
Yeah.
So clearly he's not an action director.
Yeah, which is fine. Like
Totally fine.
the action he does is walking through a hallway or like a car driving, which is perfectly fine
Absolutely.
for a drama. Yeah,
He was fine for 7 when he's chasing the guy through the hall.
exactly.
But okay, so action's not his thing. I think a biopic of somebody like I don't have a good example. I'll think of one, but something like that would be awesome. I also think he could do a really solid sports movie.
That tracking camera for like a football movie would be pretty nuts.
Moneyball was as close to David Fincher sports movie as you can get.
Who directed that again?
I don't know. Hang on a second here. But that one was so close because it had the same palette. It had the same attitude.
I would agree.
It was Bennett Miller who also, but it was Steve Zalian, and Steve Zalian's worked with.
What has he done? I forgot.
Steve Zalian's done a bunch. So Bennett Miller did Foxcatcher, Capote.
That's right. He did Foxcatcher. That's right.
So Steve Zalian was also involved on a couple. He works with Sorkin. He did Dragon Tattoo. He wrote Schindler's List. So Steve Zalian's clearly up there with Sorkin in terms of screenwriting. So put him back with him.
Yeah.
And Moneyball could have been similar, but almost like a better movie. I think it had to be a bit too sentimental.
Yeah, for sure.
For Fincher. And we were talking about how he's not sentimental, but I think Fincher could do a really, really good football movie.
You know, it'd be really great if he did a political guy like either JFK or LBJ or something like that, where it was like like a conflicted person. Like I know that Bryan Cranston played LBJ in a biopic. I think directed by Jay Roach. I want to say the guy who did like the Austin Powers movies. But I feel like David Fincher, because that was just a dark, morose time in like American history with the assassination. Obviously, was a huge thing. But I feel like someone like Bryan Cranston with someone like his candor and David Fincher's directing, I think would be fantastic.
I agree.
Obviously, they can't do it because it's been already made, and All the Way actually was apparently pretty good.
I mean, somebody he could do a Reagan movie, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if Reagan's a great character for him.
Like. I feel like the perception of Ronald Reagan is so idealistic for most of America.
It's true.
I feel like it would be, I don't know. He would either have to like completely buy into that or completely buck orthodoxy. And I feel like he needs to. I feel like he needs to have a character that's like very conflicted on the inside. Like I feel like Kurt Cobain could be actually a pretty good person. For him.
I was gonna say if it's not sports, it's music.
Yeah, like I mean, got to start in music. So that's kind of full circle. But
there you go.
Like I feel like if you had like Rise Wakefield for it's the guy. You ever seen The Purge?
Yeah.
The main guy in The Purge with the long hair.
Oh yeah, the blonde dude. The
if
Australian guy.
If he played Kurt Cobain, that would be a fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah, that could be good.
And also, he actually on that same subject, that actor has actually been tipped to be the Joker, like at some point.
I think he should, but I think they're going to try to kill the Joker as a character, which is a problem
For the DCEU.
No, like Joaquin Phoenix's movie is supposed to be weird as fuck, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, there's only one, and it's not Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. And Heath Ledger.
Like,
for sure.
I don't care. It was 2008. It was 10 years ago. Let's let it rest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, on one hand, I get it. The fact that like,
the blonde guy could though.
No, for like, he has that kind of menacing, and he's a young guy,
He's
and
creepy, man.
I mean, The Purge was a fucking
For an Australian, he's creepy. Australians are usually so nice.
Say good day, mate. God.
Hey.
But I think that he would be pretty. He would play a good kind of psychologically menacing person for Fincher to kind of explore. It'd be kind of interesting. Who else? Fuck, there was somebody I had in my eye. Let me check. Come on, brain, don't fail me now. I think it's gone.
So I mean, those are all solid ideas. He's done a few detective movies now. He did Mindhunter.
I haven't seen that, to be honest.
It was all right. It's very Fincher-esque. I don't know if he
was
directed
it.
the whole thing.
Did he do the entire thing of the first episode?
So he did 1.2, 1.9, 110, 2.1, and 2.8.
So he did a couple of them.
Yeah. So he did a few of 1 and a couple of 2.
Okay.
Kind of like House of Cards.
Okay.
But it's back to serial killers. Clearly, he's got a thing for that. Maybe he's one flaw.
Maybe he's got some heads in his basement.
I hope not. I mean, he did Seven, he did Zodiac, and then he did Mindhunter, where they're trying to define the term serial killer.
Yeah.
I think he needs to get away from that. I want to see something different. That's why I think sports movie could be really, really good.
Yeah.
Because it's very different. And I mean, Benjamin Button was historical, but it wasn't historical like based on fact.
Yeah, like it was almost like a Tarantino. It was set in the backdrop of a certain time period, and then he kind of did his thing, which is fine.
It was like a Gump. It was like Forrest Gump almost.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. For it, yeah.
So I think Christopher Nolan did Dunkirk.
I love that.
I didn't finish it.
You didn't finish it?
Didn't like it.
Really?
Personally.
Interesting.
But I think Fincher could do not a war movie, but something like that where he goes way outside his comfort zone, way outside what he normally does, and figures out something good.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's done sci-fi a little. I mean, Alien was okay, but maybe he needs to go back to sci-fi, do another sci-fi movie.
Yeah, like a cold, disaffected, like space travel movie or something.
He could do
like
a great dystopian movie.
Oh, for sure, like a apocalyptic, like after a zombie apocalypse.
Not
or whatever.
Hunger Games, for Christ's sake. We've had enough of those.
Enough of those. Like,
Divergent, get out of here.
Yeah. I can't believe they scrapped that entire thing.
Oh yeah, I was working at that company when they scrapped it.
Are you serious?
That was supposed to be like a big movie for us for like selling ads, and they just botched it. So they cut it, and we had to completely revamp our schedule.
Isn't that fucked up? How Shailene Woodley's one of the best actresses working today, and she did that piece of shit.
Yeah, I know. Theo James, I think. Fine, good looking dude, but not a great.
I want to be brave. I'm going to speak in a monotone for the whole movie. I want to be brave. You can't do that.
Divergent.
Oh,
It's no fucking guy. And then he was in Underworld, so you know he just went downhill.
oh, for sure. He's like a Brandon Routh.
Oh my god.
Remember that guy?
No.
That played Superman.
That piece of shit Superman movie?
Did one movie and then did a cameo in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and that's pretty much all he's done.
Talk about Chris Evans doing superhero movies, man. He was in that one. He was in Fantastic Four. He was in he was in the Losers. The Losers. That was a comic book movie too.
Oh my God, DC wrote that one. Yeah, you're right. Oh wow,
we're off topic now, but
no, fuck it, man. we covered all Fincher. We can kind of shoot the shit.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we covered what he would do. What's his best movie? Worst movie? I'm trying to think of like what else. Where else can we go here? He has. I mean, his catalog isn't huge.
It's not at all, but I feel like it gives a lot of potential for what he could actually do as a filmmaker. I think biopics is a really good idea for him. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a fantasy guy.
No, certainly not.
Hell no.
He's not going to do Game of Thrones.
Hell no. Although I would say like those big tracking shots in some of those battle scenes.
Would you watch it? I would watch it.
No, with those tracking shots in the battle scenes, that'd be pretty sweet. But I haven't seen Game of Thrones to be completely honest with you, but yeah.
What?
Seriously, man.
I recommend
everyone is so shocked when I say that. I started seasons 1 and 2 and I just got really busy, and then I didn't feel right like starting season 3 and like remembering nothing about like what I was like watching before. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I heard it's good though.
Get back into it. Yeah, I don't think he could do that though.
Yeah,
he could. Sorry, not you.
Yeah.
I honestly think the most underrated one he's got on here is The Game. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing we can talk about is like what he's got on his calendar next.
Yeah. What do we got?
World War Z 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I looked it up last night. I was like, what? Okay, really? This is what he's doing now?
That's so interesting.
Okay, so he's got World War Z 2. That's the only thing on his list currently.
Really?
Yeah. Writers Max Brooks and Dennis Kelly. Max Brooks was the author, so that makes sense. Dennis Kelly. Okay, so this may or may not happen. Sorry, guys, I'm getting people's hopes up. I liked the first one.
No, I thought it was a solid action movie.
The only character cast right now is Brad Pitt.
But I do like the pairing of Fincher and Brad Pitt. I feel like they work well together.
They do.
We saw it in Seven, and
what has Brad Pitt been doing these days?
He was in fuck, what's the? He had a cameo in Deadpool too.
I loved that. So good.
Yeah, the Vanisher, and then he's
Yes.
just dead.
So good. Oh, he's got a bunch.
I gotta say that scene when the entire X Force just dies with fucking
So good.
with AC/DC's Thunderstruck playing in the background. That was like that's Oscar
So
worthy right
good.
there.
Not producer, actor. What he's good. Okay, so he's got. Oh, he's gonna be in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
He is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Cliff Booth. I don't know who that is.
It's him, Leo, and is Tom Hardy still in it, or is
There's
he?
a bunch of people in this movie, man.
Margot Robbie's in it too, right?
Margot Robbie, Leo, Brad Pitt, Dakota Fanning, Al Pacino.
Al Pacino's in it.
Al Pacino's Marvin Schwartz. I don't know who that is. Timothy Olyphant, Kurt Russell, James Marsden, Emil
shit.
Hirsch, Burt Reynolds, Damian Lewis. There's a bunch of people in this
Oh my
movie.
god, what a cast!
Yeah, it's gonna be epic.
I just hope that Sony's trying to fuck that thing up, but I think Tarantino would probably sell his soul rather than like fucking.
No.
Fuck up this
I mean,
movie.
they look awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
These two guys. Leo.
I mean, Leo's Leo.
Leo's Leo. That's a story for another podcast. I don't know, man. I'm curious to see whether Fincher sticks with TV. I hope not. I need another movie out of him.
Yeah, I feel like if he did like True Detective kind of thing, where
That
it's-
would be awesome.
Yeah, like some kind of like anthology, or not even anthology, but just a one-off, just mini-series, not like a multiple season TV show. Just like tell a 8-hour story, and that would be pretty sweet. I mean, a lot of the things in Cary Fukunaga's interpretation of True Detective was fantastic, and it was more or less on the Fincher kind of line. Where
it certainly was.
Yeah, like you have the psychological aspect where you're analyzing the depths of humanity. That would be pretty cool, and hopefully it doesn't do anything as bad as season 2. But
No, nothing will be.
we were talking about it before the podcast, but how squandered of a fucking TV show that was. Like that was just such a.
Clearly, Nick Pizzolatto had too much time to write the first season and not enough time to write the second.
And also, Cary Fukunaga loved the project too. That's what was so interesting about that show, because there was such a complete character realization. That's because only one director did the entire thing.
Right.
Cary Fukunaga did the entire thing, and so apparently he left the project, and Nick Pizzolatto, despite him, basically had a bunch of directors to come on to do the show, and I felt like a disjointed mess, like it was supposed to be.
It makes you realize that Nick Pizzolatto is talented, but not as talented as everybody thought, or even as he thought himself.
Well, he's a good show creator, and he's a decent show writer, but you need a good director to, So a good example of that is someone like Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin is a decent director. He did Molly's Game this past year, which is fine. It was a derivative kind of like hustler movie, but you need a talented screenwriter with a talented director, and that's a match made in heaven.
Sure.
Unless they're the same person, like Tarantino, for example. But, but yeah, you need a screenwriter and a director to be synergistic. You can't have them be kind of at odds with each other.
Well, I almost don't like it when it's the same person.
Yeah,
I think I like the writing when somebody else takes the vision for it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I feel like Tarantino stuff is so stylized where it fits him perfectly, but someone like David Fincher, I don't think he could write his own script. Nor
I wouldn't want him to.
Yeah, I don't think he should. He's a visual and a blocking guy.
Sure.
And Sorkin, someone like that who writes a sentence and revises it fucking 45 times before he moves on, is someone that, a perfectionist on the paper is someone that should be matched with the perfectionist behind the camera, which I think is great.
Yeah, I guess the last thing we didn't talk about was his use of music.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it's good. I think it very well matches what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be as well known as
Absolutely not.
everybody else.
I will say that the use of music in The Social Network is probably his best example of using music that complements the movie and kind of sets the world. I like that kind of distorted, almost symphonic but mostly dance music kind of thing.
In The Social, you mean Trent Reznor's?
Yeah, exactly.
He won for that.
He did?
Trent Reznor won.
I mean, it's a good soundtrack,
score.
but I think that's probably his most memorable one. I don't think any of his other scores are really that memorable.
I mean, I would say that the game kind of kicked off his use of score as a character.
I can't remember that score.
Very piano heavy, very light, but repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of adapted since then. But Fight Club was right after that. So Fight Club had some more pop music in there.
Yeah.
Zodiac clearly used 60s and 70s music.
Yeah.
Social Network really took it as far as it could go. And then Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, also Trent Reznor.
I will say that movie had the best cover of a song I've ever heard. Like the immigrant song in the beginning of the movie.
Credits.
That was
The most disturbing credits you've ever seen.
yeah, but the sickest rendition of the immigrant song I've ever heard in my life.
It was really good.
That was pretty sweet.
Yeah. So clearly he knows what he's doing there, and he uses it more for plot effect.
Yeah, to accentuate certain things and not really
You kind of have to listen to the lyrics, which you never do.
yeah, exactly. To accentuate certain points and not really to exist by itself. Sure, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's almost like he's too clever with it. Like the score
He's too woke.
the score and tone are awesome. But in terms of using music, it's a little tougher.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of gets lost by the wayside, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
he uses the spoken word and also his talent behind the camera as kind of a good crutch, which I really enjoy. I think that's probably his bread and butter, which I think is good. But yeah, I can't really remember a lot of decent scores from him, to be honest with you. I think you're right. That's gonna fall kind of back behind his filmography.
Yeah, I mean, I respect it, and I think it really sets the tone. But I think the rest of the movie sets the tone better than the score.
Oh, for sure.
The score is
100%.
supplementary.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not like an Ennio Morricone movie where those songs are made for the movie and not the other way around. So I think
Star Wars, for that matter.
Exactly. Like I mean, the most iconic score ever.
He's never going to have a leitmotif for his movies. That's
Yeah.
we'll say that.
Yeah, but I mean, undisputed best score is Lord of the Rings by far, at least in my view.
Ooh, tough say. It's up there, I would say. I think Jurassic Park's better.
Really?
Score and soundtrack.
I just think like over the course of 3 movies, the fact that they use the music so geniusly.
I think Howard Shore is incredible.
Yeah, like Howard Shore is just.
He was in 7.
He did 7?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
He did 7.
Wow.
But it was, I think John Williams until he's gone.
Yeah.
Unless he already is. I could be wrong. I should know that.
IMDb. Yeah, but John Williams is great, but I just think like the use of music as like a plot eccentric. He's still alive. How old is he? Like 96?
Born in 32.
Oh wow.
So yeah, he's old.
Damn. Getting up there.
What? Okay.
Probably farts out dust.
He did Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, so clearly he's still working.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's apparently it's the best thing of the movie. The movie, the rest of it is pretty dog shit.
That's what I've heard.
Oh man.
Oh man.
All right. Any? I think we covered a decent amount of shit in this one. Any?
I think we did. Closing remarks. I mean, here's to the 180 some odd laptops he used for that smashing scene at the Social Network. Gave their lives.
Oh yeah, like I can imagine Eduardo Saverin, that character, probably did like maybe 100 different like walking takes as he walking towards Mark
and smashing the laptop.
Like Mark. And that just he probably bought like a bunch of different MacBooks from the refurbished store and just like had
I
them
hope
to
so.
destroy it. Yeah,
Unless
there's no way.
Unless Sony was just like, yeah, give us all your MacBooks. I don't think they would. They would. Well, it probably wasn't even Sony because then he probably wouldn't have been able to use a MacBook.
Yeah. Well, no, did he use a MacBook in that movie?
They were all MacBooks. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Unless they weren't. I'm wrong.
Oh no, I don't think that
they were silver. That's how I know. They look like this one.
I don't know. I'll have to check that out. It's strange. But yeah, man, this is fun. I'll have to have you back.
Absolutely. We'll wrap up our chat on Fincher and other subjects.
Yeah, man. It's been fun. All right, it's been real. It's been fun,
It's been fun, but it hasn't been really fun. Sorry, I stole it from you.
I was gonna say that.
I'm kidding. I'm back. I'm coming back. We got to do something else pretty soon.
No, for sure, man. We'll do that. All right, so Lone Chemist Podcast. This is my friend Mitch Corfo, and we'll link his Get Out and also his Logan article below. So you guys can check that out. He's a very good writer, and he had some good cinema tropes to comment on. So definitely check those out, guys.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Peace out.